I want to say something that is going to sound wrong at first. Productivity is for the poor. Not because working is beneath anyone, not because effort doesn't matter, but because the obsession with productivity, with optimizing every hour, squeezing every minute, hacking every morning routine, is fundamentally the psychology of someone who is building inside someone else's architecture. Think about who invented the concept of productivity. It wasn't artists, it wasn't philosophers, it wasn't the people who built empires. It was factory managers. It was the people whose job was to extract minimum output from human beings during a fixed window of time. And somewhere along the way, we internalized that framework as if it were wisdom, as if the real goal of a human life was to produce more units per hour. And I'm not gonna lie, it's still somewhat like that. Working long hours, optimizing systems, executing perfectly on other people's plans. And I had almost nothing to show for it that was mine. Because I had confused movement with direction, effort with ownership, productivity with power. Today, I want to make a distinction that what I wish someone had made me 10 years ago. The alchemists had a concept that most people misunderstand completely. They talked about transmutation, turning base metals into gold. And for centuries, people thought this was literally about chemistry, about finding a formula. But the deeper tradition understood something else entirely. The transmutation they were describing was psychological. It was the process of turning the raw, unrefined material of a human life, the suffering, the discipline, the long nights of Nigredo, into something that generates value without your constant presence. In other words, the goal was never to work harder. The goal was to build something that works when you don't. The Hermetic principle, as above, so below. Applied to wealth means this: your external reality is a reflection of your internal architecture. A man who thinks like an employee will always build like an employee, even if he technically works for himself. A man who thinks like an owner builds systems, assets, and leverage, even when he's starting from scratch. The productive man optimizes his time. The wealthy man designs his time. There's a canyon between those two things. And most productivity content, the courses, the apps, the morning routines, is teaching you to optimize inside a structure you should be questioning entirely. Jung talked about the shadow as a repository of everything we refuse to acknowledge about ourselves. And here's that what I've noticed about the shadow of ambition. Most men who are obsessively productive are not actually ambitious, they are afraid. The business is armor. If you're always optimizing, always executing, always in motion, you'll never have to sit still long enough to ask the question that terrifies you. Am I building the right thing? Am I building anything at all? Or am I just very efficiently running on a treadmill someone else built? The shadow of the productive man is the owner he refuses to become. Because becoming an owner, truly owning something, requires entering the nigredo. It requires destroying the identity of the good employee, the reliable executor, the man who does what he's told with excellence. That identity feels safe. Productivity reinforces it. You are measurably good at something that someone else's value. But safety is not the same as freedom. And being measurably valuable to someone else is not the same as being irreplaceable to yourself. Those I respect the most are not the most productive men I know. They are the men who had the courage to stop optimizing inside the wrong system and start building their own. That transition is ugly, and I'm feeling it under my skin. It's not productive in the conventional sense. You will look inefficient to people around you. You will have periods of apparent stagnation. That is the albedo, the washing phase, the discipline that doesn't produce visible results immediately, but is restructuring everything underneath. Let me give you the simplest version of this distinction. Participation is when you trade time for money. You show up, you produce, you get paid. Remove yourself from the equation, and the income stops. Possession is when you own something that generates value independent of your daily presence. An asset, a system. A skill so rare that it commands terms instead of accepting them. Now, here's the part that most productivity content gets completely wrong. You cannot skip the participation phase. You cannot avoid the years of grinding, learning, and executing. That is the nigredo. You have to go through it. But you have to go through it with the right intention. The productive man participates with the goal of being a better participant. The owner participates with the goal of eventually possessing. Same actions, completely different psychological architecture. And over a decade, those two architectures produce completely different lives. I'm still in the transition. I'm not standing here as someone who has fully crossed over. But I can tell you, the exact moment I understood the difference, it was the moment I stopped asking, how do I work better? And started asking, what am I building that will work without me? That question changed everything. So, what do you do with this? Well, stop optimizing your productivity. Start auditing your ownership. Ask yourself, in 5 years, will I have more leverage or less? Will I be more dependent on a system I don't control or less? Will the hours I'm working now have built something I possess or just made me a very efficient instrument for someone else's wealth? The Alchemists said, the salt must be dissolved and crystallized 7 times before it reveals its true nature. Productivity is the dissolution. Ownership is the crystallization. You need both. But you need to know which one you are in and why. If you like this video, there is a link in the description to some art so you can support this channel. Thank you, my friend, and keep walking. El Sai Congolo.